this is the Grace Frame website. And if you notice up top, one of the things we have done is we've kind of broken out categories. Not everybody who comes to Grace Frame is looking for a machine. Not everybody who comes is looking for a frame. And we have several things, or if you have either of those, you might be looking for accessories. And so what we have is this general frame piece. And I'm going to click on this to talk about part of some of the options that you have. One of the key things that I'm curious to know from you is, has there been a favorite frame most recently? Let's ask that quick question, and then I'll bring this back up.
Yes, there definitely is. And I have to say it's probably one of my favorites as well, is our new Cutie Frame. I love that frame. I absolutely love it. A little bit later today, I think you'll see a video with me and Carla showing you guys a little bit of how to use that frame. Let me just tell you, I keep going back to that because it's just so easy to maneuver the top plate and handles, you know, with the machine sitting on there and move it across the fabric. So I have loved it.
One of the things I put together is a little presentation that talks about how do we actually, how can we finish more quilts? And I think that's one of the things I want to talk about is really, it's nice to know that there are frames, but why do you even in the first place, why would you want to consider it? And part of what I'm going to go through here are just a couple key pieces of thoughts and considerations. I think there will be some things that will relate to you in your space, in your home. And these are some of the things that I'm going to quickly go through. What to consider when deciding on different kind of quilting methods. And what I mean by that is you're probably using your domestic machine, or you might even have a larger sit down and you're pulling and you're puddling. There are tools that we use to help hold that. And so in your mind, think about this. I want everybody to reach back. And so I'm going to look for a comment on this right now. And I'm guessing we're going to have our comments blow up and be pretty crazy. But okay, first off, this is not the first comment. Just get ready to comment. I'm guessing that most everybody here, and I'm guessing there might be one or two who maybe have been invited. Do you have a sewing machine? Okay, LJ, do you have a sewing machine?
Yes.
Yes, you have a sewing
yes.
machine. Do we have more than one sewing machine in this house? The answer is yes.
Yes.
You have one. Mom has one, right? So there's a couple sewing machines. So you have one. Now, here's where I want it to get interesting. I would love to have you put a number in the chat. How many machines do you have at home? Here we go. 7, 6, 4, 3. I see a lot of comments. 5. Yes, yes, 5. Way to go. 8. There's an 8 in there. So isn't that the case? You know, we love the machines. And so the reason I bring this up is often the reason you probably have looked at a different machine, if you think about this, is if you think it's probably because you were looking for another feature potentially, or a function. Well, that same thing applies also potentially on frames. And why might you consider a frame? Well, it's a different feature. It's a different function for your machine. There we go. 7. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm going to throw this up there. Someone's throwing 36. 30. I'm not sure if that's a store or whatnot, but that wins. That's a winner. So we had 6, 12. There you go, Donna. 12, 13. Kelly. A lot of them out there. Here's another coming back. Actually, I have 8 because you're recounting, right? Wait a minute. I thought I had a couple more out in that other closet that I didn't have. So that's so the case. So thanks. That was really fun. Thanks for participating with your comments. There we go. 9. There's another. And here you go. She really does have 36. There you go. Put on a couple classes. People will love being with you with all your 36. So fun. So thanks, everyone. We got a lot of wows. So there you go. Here's another one. Forgot another one. There we go. We got 3. So thanks everybody for your participation. That's fantastic. I'm going to bring back the screen here again, but we're going to look briefly through that. Look at defining some physical and some educational struggles, and I want to talk about just tools in general. So I'm going to go ahead and just not spend a lot of time on this as we go through, but I do want to answer these, and then I want to talk about what are some of the solutions. So this is a question that I love to post. Think about this. Have you ever dealt with the weight and the fatigue of quilting a large quilt? Has that been the case? And it might not even be a large quilt. It might be a smaller one, but your machine, as you tried to roll that and move that through the throat of the machine, that's a question. That's a simple yes or no. You either have or you probably haven't. Most of the time, it might not be a heavy one. And I can even ask you, if it's not even the struggle, this is the next question. How about fighting your fabric in the throat of your machine, trying to smoothly push it through? If you're going to do any kind of a decorative design, you need to kind of pull and puddle that. How much space or how hard has it been for you to do that? At the bottom, I love this. Even small projects present challenges with the freedom of movement and accuracy. I think those are all true. LJ, would you believe that's true? And I know you've done a couple things with that. Yeah. And I think all the quilters out there, you would have the same comment. Yeah, I've had those. Here we're seeing a lot of people. Yes, I'm seeing some laugh out louds. Someone with some shoulder replacement on surgery. That's not necessarily a good one here. Where I want to throw that one up here. Susan, I know that's not a great space to be. And so part of the things we're going to talk about as solutions are really ways that just preside and present their solutions to some of these questions. So let's kind of move and continue here to our next piece. And as we're looking at this, one of the other things that I like to ask people is, well, how big is your project? How big? What's kind of what's the overall size? And I bring this up. This isn't it's a good or bad thing, right? And I did one that was a super king. I think it's big enough that it droops over a king size bed and comes down past the mattress all the way. Shag, Minky, Flannel. I kind of brought this up briefly here on day one, but I've had a chance. That one took some time. I'll tell you, would never have put that together in a domestic machine. There's no way, couldn't do it. And then by using some of the tools, I was able to do a really big, really cool kind of embroidered, 50-inch car. I love Camaros, so I did one of those. But think of your quilt size. And the reason this is the case is quilts work differently on different frames. And so you can get frames that fit into small spaces, but still can do up to king size. The way you move through those is a little bit different, but there's options. Now, if you get a bigger frame, there are some conveniences, but that's one thing I want you to think about briefly as a consideration of if you're going to start looking at a tool. And I like to say one of your machine's best accessory friends, you kind of need to know this moving into it. This is another one. I just bring this out there because there is no really right or wrong size. And again, I could say that if I'm going to ask this question, I'm pretty sure a lot of hands go up. If you've ever finished a quilt, pieced a quilt, did it ever get bigger as you were finishing? And that means, did you add an extra border and then you added another border, or you did some blocks and then you added some sashing? Happens all the time, right? So what we always start with doesn't mean that's what we always end with. So that's just naturally the case of what it is. That's good. Love what that is. I've seen several of those projects that have started much smaller and they continue to grow. And again, I just bring that out because that might be something else you need to consider. Where might you want to go with quilting? Like if you're doing certain sizes today, would you ever have a need to do something potentially larger? And I bring this up. Is this your space right now? Oh no! Where and what space do you have? Where can you put a frame? Where are your sewing machines? And so these were a couple. I just took some sewing rooms that I found online that had some different areas. Your spaces could be jam-packed of all sorts of stuff. Now, I would say maybe it's more like this. I don't know if this is the case, but yesterday, as an example, we have Jennifer Gaston, who is with Primitive Quilt. She was with us, and she did a quick pan of her room. This was more like her room. Her room was really big. She had a whole lot of space, and I'm pretty sure that could be a dream studio for a lot of people. So again, this is the other thing to consider. What is your space? What are your limitations? Again, not any one of them is better than the other. In fact, we had somebody talking last time that she's finishing her she shed, which is really, really fun. This one's even larger. This one has, you can see, a complete sewing area, a large cutting area, and this one has a long arm in the background. So your quilting spaces can be of all varied differences. This is another really big one. Think about this. What is the budget? And it's not that you have to have one in mind, but if you understand your tolerances, you can get different things. The car I'm driving today is not the same kind of car I drove when I was 14. I was fortunate enough to find a $300 car that was fantastic and lasted me, 6 years. And then I kind of started to know what I wanted, and I worked through part of a career, and I decided I want a slightly varied car. Things change. What are our homes? What are our situations? We might love a bigger fabric stash, so we're going to spend a little less on our tools. Those are all great things. But again, it's good to have that in your mind, because you think about this again. I'm curious to see this. Maybe you throw in a quick comment on this. What would be the cost of a quilting system? If I just throw that out there, like how much does a long arm cost? And I have some numbers here on the board. I'm curious to see what you think. But they're not $100. They're not really $500. We have some that you're going to see. You can start around the mid $3,000 to $4,000, but some of those are upwards of $30,000 and even up to $40,000. So again, where are you at from a budget? Where do you want to start, and then where would you like to progress to? And so I like bringing that up as a piece just to kind of see. And we'll maybe see if we get some comments coming through here. Like 7,000, that's a really great thing. What a lot of people say. And again, this is just a thing. It's just a recap. Are you, thinking it's going to be a lot? Here's somebody at 3,500 throwing out some numbers. Somebody has some space. My space is 5x4. I love what that one is. And so we're going to look at this. So wonderful. Thanks for bringing those in. This one I wanted to talk about is part of the physical and the educational struggles. And so I just got a couple pictures of kind of the pooling and the process. You might say, I've been there, I've done that. And here's another one. This is something else to consider. What is the throat of your machine? Now, this isn't a big necessary concern, but I do feel like you just need to understand of what you have and what the limits are with what you have. And then that's good because that might give you a direction of where you want to go down the road. But a lot of them, you can start with what you have today, and it'll actually, some of the tools we'll talk about make it actually easier to quilt with already what you have. So you don't need anything else. It just gives you with what you have. What's your biggest fear? I love this. What are your fears as a person as you're looking at moving into this? And there you go. Love that picture. That's a fun one. I don't know. What is your fear? What is it going to be? Part of those things as a fear, we have education and others to help overcome that. One of the things I like to talk about is there are things to overcome those fears. There's a lot of education today. In fact, there's a research done here recently that talks about one of the biggest places people are going and things they're looking for as quilters is the how-tos. Like, how do I do this? And they're really looking for that on like the YouTubes. And now some of that comes through Facebook. There are also different things like quilt directories and your local shops. So I wanted to bring up that there are a lot of tools out there now that are making that available for you to start to overcome some of those. This is interesting. I'm going to show you a few pictures. I went out and started looking, how are people trying to do this? And these are some different methods of people trying to take their current situation with the domestic machine to hold the weight of that quilt. And LJ, we were talking, right, that this can be somewhat of a struggle. And this is one of the biggest questions customers call in about. How do we do that? Well, I want to kind of get to this picture here. This picture shows you how we have, getting into Grace Company, we have frames. And by using a frame that fits and works with a machine, you no longer have to push and pull fabric. And we have two kinds of frames. One of them we call a roller frame. And those are the larger ones that fabric rolls around, and we'll pull some of those up here in a minute. One of the most popular ones that we've had here in the last couple of years has been what we call a hoop style frame. And this picture that you're looking at in this image shows us on the right side is that you can move through this and you can draw across the top of your fabric with your machine. And this is the difference between you pushing and pulling fabric as the machine glides over the surface. And this is what we would refer to as free motion quilting on any kind of a frame system. And so there are a couple different methods that you can do that. And again, that varies between a couple frames. So this again is what we call the hoop frame. This frame specifically is called our Q-Zone hoop frame. So this is a 4.5 foot frame from the left to the right edge, and from front to back, you're going to need about 3.5 feet of space. This one you can sit or stand at, and we're showing it with an optional light bar. This is one where the fabric drapes over the outside. LJ, tell me, what size quilts can you do on a frame like this?
Any size. There is no limit. You can do the tiniest quilt. You can do giant. There is no size limit.
So any size. And the reason why, and tell us a little bit, maybe, and we'll see some of this a little bit later, but what makes it possible to do any size quilt on something like this?
Part of what you're able to do is you're actually able to roll up the fabric and then kind of hold it up next to the frame. And then are able to quilt out that section. Then you're able to actually shift your fabric over to a new section and then quilt that area out.
So again, you do not have to, the fabric itself does not wrap around a rail with this one. So what this does is the fabric drapes over the surface and then you move through and across it with this type of a frame. And again, we'll show you a quick video on some simple ones of these, but I wanted to point that out with this type of a frame. So we call it a zone quilting frame. So this is your machine. Your machine sits on to the top of the trolley. And the nice thing about this is a difference. This is one of the biggest difference between our professional frames. So we have the really large frames and something like this hoop frame, which by the way, can hold up to 19-inch machines. So it's not that there's necessarily a lack of quality in those. Really, it's a space and a size. And then there's a little bit on the convenience. But if you look at this picture, the frames are 4.5 feet. We have a lot of people when they move into what we call our Continuum 2 frames or our Queen frame, they buy them at 8 foot or 10 foot. We have out to 12. And actually in the professional world, you can get frames out to 14 feet wide. So again, this goes back, how big are your quilts and then where is your space? And this really is the space one. Where would you put a frame if by chance you wanted to do this free motion quilting? How much room do you have? Can you fit something that's a little over, like, do you have 5 feet of space? I consider that the size of like a medium-sized desk. So that would be something that's really, really an option for you become something like this. So we're going to go to our next slide here. So again, smaller, it's a smaller footprint than the larger ones. This is what that looks like on those small ones where there's a carriage. This lets you put your machine and they sit on top of that platform. And then there's handles that are used for you to move it around. This is the base. And so this does show you the base of that. Again, 4.5 feet to about 3.5 feet. And then you'll need the space for you to be there. And then these also have different type of components that make it very smooth for you to move the machine. One of the items that I like is the top right picture, is that even if you're starting with your domestic machine on several of our frames, you're not limited. If you decide as you move down the road that you're ready to move into a mid-arm or even up to a 19-inch arm, the frame expands with you. And so this is the other question a lot of people have. Well, if I come buy a frame, like, am I limited? Am I going to have to buy a whole new system later? And maybe, LJ, if I could have you share a little bit with us, what normally would be your answer to the quilters when they call you regarding something like that?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the things that I really love about the Grace Company's products and our products, because it actually can grow with you. And I love that because I think we're always changing, we're looking to maybe do something a little bit different. So that requires a little bit something, different than what we're doing. So the great thing is that it easily can you go from what you have now to something different. And so I love that about our products.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think that's one of the biggest relieving things I love is that if you're starting your journey and you have an investment at whatever you feel like that is your budget, that it's not having to be thrown away later, that it's the beginning of your journey, right? It's the beginning of your path. And so I love that. The other things we're showing on this picture is that a lot of the frames, in fact, all frames we have, they are either height adjustable or you can buy, like for our little Cutie, a height adjustable leg set for it. So I like just kind of pointing that out as we're going through that. This is that Cutie frame. This is the smallest of those frames. This is the tabletop, and it can be stowed and moved, and it's a portable one. We love showing that with the little domestic machine. And then really what I'd like to do here, this is one of the questions I like bringing up. So methods and tools to, to consider is your machine. So you can start with your machine. When you look at the frames that we have, there are boundless possibilities. You're not limited based on the size projects you want to do. You can look at space saving and some non-space saving. And what we have is we have options that can be what you might consider affordable to you. So I really love that kind of as we look at concluding part of what this is. I'm going to go ahead, and what I'd like to do is bring up our website here for a minute. And I just want to go through the different frames that we actually have with our system. And at the top, I'm going to click on the machine tab. But on this page, it talks about machine quilting frames. It starts with the Cutie. Below it, it really brings them in. So the Cutie is the smallest of them. And as you move down the screen, it talks about the one on the left is our Continuum 2 frame. So this is our professional series frame, 8, 10, or 12 feet. One thing to think about when you're using a frame like this, that is what I call a roller. So your fabric has to roll around the rails. So as you have to roll the fabric around the rails, if you think your fabric can't go outside of the frame. So the limitation you have on a rolling frame is that the frame has to be bigger than the projects you will do. Now, if you start with the Continuum 2 at 8 foot, you can buy 2-foot extensions out to 12, so that's okay. But if you by chance have an 8 or 10 foot and you're ready to do like a Super King and you need the extra space, you would have to purchase the extension before you can do the bigger quilt. Now, what's really nice about a frame like this is that it does do all of the basting for you on the process, because the fabric is loaded onto rails. It is then brought through the throat of the machine and finished as you finish it. So they become, at the end of the day, really the most sought after. But the frames, because there's a lot more material, tend to be a little bit more expensive. But when you think of a professional or a friend that probably has a long arm system, this is most likely the type of frame that it's on. So we have the hoop frame and the queen frame. And so I'm just going to kind of scale down this. This is kind of one of the difference. We have the rolling frames so that you're rolling fabric, or we have one where we clip the fabric over the top of those, which is really great. Another key thing that we really define with ours is a precision. So you can think if you're going to be moving your machine, you don't want your machine wiggling all around. So we have very nice high precision bearings, and all of our frames actually are very, very free to move. They do not require a lot of effort, even if there are bigger or heavier machines. And so that's a good thing to look at. At the top of this page, you'll notice that there is an option. This is the Cutie frame. So this really just breaks out that Cutie product very specifically and all the details on that. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in here. Here's the Continuum. That is that professional series machine. And again, you can buy different accessories with different frames. And so this one lets you decide and just, how big do you want, 8 foot, 10 foot? Do you want to get a batting rail? And so again, I really wanted to let you know, first and foremost, that how much space do you have? What are you thinking based on your projects, and what is your budget? And that gives you a really strong starting point. And then are you going to start with something that you have at home and you're looking to use one of your domestic machines? And then, or are you looking to buy into part of a system based on that space? You're looking to move into a 15-inch machine, which you'll find a lot of great. We have starting promotions on that kind of a combination at around $4,300 for a 15-inch stitch regulated machine and a frame. And so there's a lot of options out there. Is it a 19-inch machine? Is it a 21? Is it a 21 Pro? So, so that's a fun thing to know and have and look at. I can come back to a couple questions, but really quick, what I'd like to do right now is I would like to have LJ. I see that Plinko board on the side. So what I would like to do first is I would like you to come out with a question that we can ask all of our participants. So with that, the question that I have, and I have a couple other things. We're going to come back to is like, can you put wheels on frames? Yes, you can. We're going to come back and answer some of those here in just a minute. But let's go ahead and do some giveaways really quick, LJ.
Woo!
All right. Woo. So my question is, what is the first question, I guess? What are we going to ask everybody who's out there participating?
Let's see.
And it can be something we've talked about. Well, go ahead.
No. Go.
I'll bring this up. I brought up as part of this presentation piece that I'm going through, there are kind of 3 things you can think about when you're considering moving into an accessory for your machine tool. What would be one of them? Give me one. What's one of the key things you need to start to think about if you want to look at an accessory regarding these kind of frames or a system? What would be one of those? And we're going to take a look. What would that be? So I'm seeing a lot of numbers pop up here. 68. I'm not sure what are numbers for. You know, did you throw something out there?
I didn't throw any numbers out there.
56. All right, here we go. We've got a lot. There we go. Nice. Yes. So right here, here's one. We're going to give this a winner to Patty. Patty, congratulations on this one. So we're going to do a drop on the Plinko. What this is, and that is space. How much space do you have, right? What is the space that you have potentially if you're going to be doing something? By the way, if you don't have space, we still have the solution. But how much space do you have? That's the question. So with that, let's LJ. I'm going to bring up. Let's bring up Plinko board. Woo, here we go. And let me go ahead and
ready?
Bring it up for everybody else. Here we go.
Ready. Woo!
What is it?
Quilter's Creative Design.
All right, Quilter's Creative Design.
Way to go.
Wonderful.
Woo!
What that was, Patty, is that is a software that comes on a thumb drive that allows you to design paper panographs or paper patterns that if you want to pounce through onto fabrics, or if you by chance have a frame, you can make them at any size you want so that you can use them for laser tracing, etc. It's a $350 value, so that's a wonderful gift. Patty, what I'm going to ask for those who are here with us, and I guess I need to help clarify this, these live presentations we're doing are part of what we're going to be doing within the contiguous or the continental 48 U.S. states. And so that makes it easier. Again, we would love to have your answers if not, but with that, and then what I need you to do on that one, Patty, is go ahead and email Jana, Janna. So the winner needs to email Jana, Janna, at graceframe.com in order to get your prize. We're going to go back and let's do another one.
Yes. I love prizes. I love giving out prizes. Who doesn't love something free?
We got a lot of congratulations coming through. Great. We had size. I'm looking for another one here. So let's go ahead and, I'm liking this one. This one has kind of a couple in there. So this one has space and in your size. I think we just did space and size, right? So thanks. I'm looking for a different one over here. Nice, cool, nice prize. Oh, here is another one. Outside of space and size. This is a big one. We're going to do Carol. Carol, it is budget. I'm going to use this with budget. And I love that one. So, and the other one is actually the size of your quilt. So what project, what size? And I think maybe that's what we're referring to as quilt. So we're going to do this with Carol. Let's go ahead and drop this in for Carol. Do a Plinko for Carol.
Here we go.
What's she going to get?
360 cutter.
360 circle cutter. Do you know a little bit about that, LJ?
I do.
If you feel comfortable, to share a little bit about what that gift is, why that's such a great present.
So I love that cutter. So our 360 cutter is what it is it's a circle cutter. And it's actually very neat. It's where you have this little dial that you kind of help hold the circle or the cutter in place. And there's this knob where you can actually shift what size circle you want to then cut out. So it's a really great cutter to have.
Wonderful. With that, Carol, we're going to ask you to reach back out to Jana, Janna, in order to redeem that. That's a $40 value. I'll tell you, Mark did a demonstration on this the other day in his master cutting collection. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, super easy. It works very well. In fact, a lot of people when demo this go like, whoa, did that just happen? Was it that easy? And yes, it is that easy. I'm curious to know, as we're going through this, what would be a couple other questions that I might be able to help answer here really quick regarding frames? I will tell you this. If you have a domestic machine that you want to put with a frame, like, hey, I would like one of these tools that makes quilting easier, okay? And you're considering that. One of the things that you have potentially as an option is if your machine, if we can stitch regulate it, that means we can automatically control your stitching speed. You can buy any one of the frames. There's no limit. And we do have stitch regulation for pretty much every brand, whether it's Baby Lock or Brother or Juki or Janome or Fob or Viking, any of those groups, any of those, we have stitch regulations for a lot of the current machines over the last 5 to 8 years. If not, then you have to use your foot pedal. And if you use your foot pedal, if you think about this, if you use your foot pedal in that cord, you can't drag that cord past a middle leg of a really big frame. So the foot pedal is not usable. If you can't use a machine with a foot pedal on a really, really big machine, you would have to use one of the hoop style frames. But still, we have frames available, but that would be a limitation to think about. Yes, I have a domestic machine. You can use any domestic machine on any of the hoop frames. Boy, I really want one of those bigger frames. Know that you'll need to add a speed control or stitch regulation to your machine if you're going to cover a much bigger space. So that's something I thought I would do with your domestics regarding the frame.
Yeah, and then just really quick, Nathan, actually, just one thing I really wanted to bring back up, that we do, like he's saying, that we have so many different frames, just so many different things, whether it's something, your space, your budget. And so we, again, any question, if we're not able to get your question here today, give us a call. It's that 800 number. Or again, go to our webpage. We have a chat. We got somebody on there now. So again, just reach out to us. And again, if you want to walk through those questions with us, we'd be more than happy. And we'd actually love to hear from you guys on those.
Wonderful. This is a question. This is a simple one. This is a yes. The Continuum is the bigger frame. One of the nice things is the Juki 98. We do have stitch regulation and speed controls for those. So that is a yes as a combo, as an example. So if you're not quite sure, feel free. You can kind of come back in. This is another question. How do you determine the best height? Just so you know, in general, if you're going to be standing or sitting, one of the things we recommend, I'm going to kind of get a little bit taller here to just kind of show you this. We like to say if you're standing, that your arm should be at a right angle. So you don't want your arm, here we go. We don't want your arm to have to be up if you're holding your handles, and we don't want your arm to have to be down. So we do talk about that your arm forms a right angle on your arm when you're holding the handle, so you're not having to hold them up and they're not low would be an ideal way to set your frame. So whatever machine you're using, if it's a carriage or if it's built in, you want your arms to be at a right angle when you're using that machine to be relaxed. That's how you would determine the height. If you need to sit a lot, then that doesn't matter. Make sure you have a height adjustable chair, and then you can lower your table down. Some people, if you have the bigger professional frames, you can also buy a larger height, like there's what we call saddle chairs, so that you can actually sit in front of your frame as you're moving across. So those are some options for you guys to think about. Here's a good one. I love this and love my stitch regulator. Somebody has that already. They do work wonderful. In fact, yesterday we did a sneak peek on our Sure Stitch Elite. It's a new one. A smarter system that has some really awesome smarts. It has built-in what we call edge warning. So if your machine gets closer to the rails or to the front where you won't have space, it gives you a little beep, 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 beep. Like if you're in a car and you're backing up, it tells you, no, you're going to hit it. And so it has some bigger and better smarts in it, which is just really, really fun. So what size throat is the best? This is an interesting question. This one really is a question that relates to how much do you want to quilt at a time? And I just want to quickly get through an answer. I would tell you anything that you have today is where you need to start. Obviously, a slightly larger machine is going to give you more workable space to quilt. And so the bigger that machine throat gets, the less you have to roll or move your fabric. And so it's a convenience component, and that's a budget component. One of our most popular machine that we had is really our 15, but a lot of people have been moving to our 19. I love this one. This is kind of what you can say, really get as large as you can afford. That's not coming from me. So that's kind of a recap. If you can, get it. Here's something. I love my 21. I've been able to do bigger bigger designs. And so again, those are things, but start where you're comfortable. And that's the nice thing is the frames, you can always add a next size to it.